So I am River Jean Nash. I am an artist as well as a designer. I have hybrid practices, so kind of a designer, joiner, carpenter, maker, artistic fabricator, educator. Many different intersecting skills, basically. What jumped out of me was there was this interest in change making within education. I was working on a DYCP, which is an Arts Council funded project looking at the workshop as a site of violence, the workshop being an industrial workspace that I'd previously been working in as a carpenter. And I had become very hyper aware of, in fact, of how lacking in care those spaces were and how detrimental that could be to psycho-emotional health and well-being. So I explored those ideas thematically and used sound largely and soundscapes as a kind of idea of cathartic experience through sound to attempt to kind of release some of that trauma and also kind of create a sense of collectivity within those spaces where people feel quite atomized. The fellowship, it allows this opportunity to just be able to explore, to experiment, to really value process. And something that repeatedly came up for me is that I am, as a product of the systems under which we live, be them like neoliberal capitalist systems, or that I am always expected in my own work life to meet clients' needs, and the value of my work is always dependent on product. So I'm very focused on productivity, the amount of work I've done, or the quality of the work that I've done. And so actually being in a position where I was allowed to just explore, to experiment, to fail, obviously potentially to not succeed, but to attempt something and not be judged by that. And I essentially didn't ever become focused on a final product, but instead just explored lots of different mediums, and some of which worked and some of which didn't. But that was totally new to me, and it still feels a little difficult now in a way that I haven't produced a final outcome, but I have loads of sketches and loads of potential. I have produced work that I never would have produced had I not had the conversations with the Educational Incubator. I've never considered the ethics and politics of care to the depth to which I have throughout the fellowship, and that just loads of new valuable ideas were brought to the table through the discussion, which has broadened the depth of my inquiry, or I've been given great references to think on. All of it has inspired ultimately the work that has produced. So I guess the discussions are part of the creative process. They are creative in and of themselves, basically. And I think through thinking about this process as care as resistance, maybe two things. One, which is that I've ended up realizing that care in and of itself is a creative process, because it's often about human relationships and human dynamics, and realizing that process in and of itself can be a creative process with intent. And also realizing that resistance is a creative process. If you're currently looking at what you're looking at now, and you may be critical of that or seeking change within it, ultimately that forces you into a state of contemplation, of discussion, and of creating new thought. And so therefore it's the generation of kind of new ideas. So resistance and also community making. I feel like even the act of making new community is all forms of creativity. I have felt very held by the Educational Incubator, everyone involved in that, and by arts and culture. I've definitely sensed that there is a real intention to be caring in this process, and to really respect someone who is an artist. And I haven't felt like there was any kind of distinction between what I might be able to offer as an artist relative to people who are academics.
My name's Sarah Dyer. I'm a human geographer. I research education, higher education in particular, and I'm the director of the Exeter Education Incubator. The incubator's existed for about 5 years, and our role in the university is to support educators to innovate in their education practice. So we make a number of grants, we host events and programmes that provide an opportunity for people to share and learn with each other, and we have an evaluation framework to make sure that we've got a real sense of kind of what's working and what's not in terms of supporting student learning. So I've thought that care is important to education for a long time. I think it's important in terms of supporting educators to develop their practice. They're trying something new, and that can be scary. It can be scary when you're a professional and you've got a way that kind of works well enough. To kind of take that leap and to try something new which might fail, I think, care is really important in kind of supporting that. Care is also really important in our relationships with students. And I think there's something about COVID that's really shone a light on that, a focus that we've been through this time, and care has really surfaced as kind of something that really makes a difference. When we learn something, we're stepping into a new relationship. So we're stepping into a new relationship with ourselves, with the world, and I think that to step into that well requires a kind of to feel secure. So there's this kind of tension between security and challenge, and I think that care is like the oil in that relationship. We invited River to come along to a writing retreat that we run. Lots of the conversations we've had have been like kind of, and this and this and this, and really, there's been, it's been a really rich experience, and it's really kind of, I think for both of us, really sparked off lots of kind of different directions. Certainly got this feeling it's just like the beginning. It's really sort of, there are lots of seeds being sown about this idea of care. And about its tricksy nature. We've talked a lot about whether care is always good, the ways in which care can be a form of exploitation, or it can be a way of kind of sort of care washing institutions, but also its power and it's the politics of care. And it's just been a really kind of thought-provoking set of exchanges. We tend to think of academic work as being quite intellectual, and there might be moments of discovery, but really it's all quite rational. Whereas actually I think learning is a form of creativity, and I think that I really think kind of innovating education practice is a form of creativity, and we describe ourselves in the Incubator as supporting innovation. But innovation has quite heavy baggage, and I think quite a lot of that is quite sort of aggressive and kind of shiny. And so I think that what care brings to that is just the humanity and the kind of real focusing on the people who are at the centre of that learning. But it's been a really, really fantastic process. Absolutely loved seeing the evolution, really enjoyed the conversations, and very kind of excited about what happens now.